Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Amna Gull. Hey, Amna, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to have you here and definitely excited to have this conversation with you. Before we get started, I just want to give our listeners a little bit of your background so they can kind of get to know you.
Yeah, sure.
So Amna Gull is a master transformational neurolinguistic programming NLP practitioner and founder of the Goal of Greatness. She believes in the true inner greatness of every individual and that people may simply need to change the filters they see their reality through to experience their greatness. She believes that all our lives are meant to be approached holistically, that we are not just a brain and a body, we are so much more than that. Using tools and techniques provided by Transformational NLP that deal with the physical aspects of being a human, as well as the metaphysical part of being human, brings true healing to a person. Amna is very passionate about working with her clients and believes that to bring profound healing and permanent change into their lives, their experience must be honored and worked with the utmost respect. Amna is committed to helping people translate their inner creativity, their soul's desire, their true inner selves to become in alignment with their outer reality. Wow, I definitely love that. And again, me, I have taken myself NLP myself. I'm also an NLP practitioner, and definitely that's a topic that I really enjoy and like, just because the things that it can do for people in many different aspects. Before we dive into that, though, tell me more about you, your upbringing. Where are you originally from, and how was that for you?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Pakistan, and I lived there till I was 16. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, which was a blessing because I picked up a lot of things from them, which did help me to get through some of the challenging times in my life. When I was 16, I moved with my parents to Ireland, and that was, I would say, the first very big transformation in my life. Because it was me moving at that young age into a completely new, different world and having to maintain my sense of identity while, juggling how to keep my belonging with two different worlds simultaneously. So that I really, really enjoyed that experience. It was really cool to reinvent myself in an entirely new culture. And then when I got married, I moved to the UK, to England, and I've been living here ever since.
Yeah, talking about moving to Ireland and having a new identity, or reinventing yourself to that. I know a lot of times, people may be going through a similar thing, where you have to essentially be part of a different community, be accepted. You're being looked differently. And there's so many different things, right? How was it for you to be able to not only reinvent yourself, yet find yourself through all of that? Because that definitely is not something easy that people can do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, belonging is one of our innate needs as humans. You know, people would die just so they can belong, and it's our old creature, our old part of our brain, creature neurology, that we have this need to belong, to feel that we are safe. And I think in that young age, it was because I was quite young, it was a very exciting experience. It was learning new ways of living, new things, and while still appreciating and honoring the old tradition and culture that I come from. So I think it was just finding that right balance of respecting where I'd come from, yet still allowing myself the experience and being open-minded to new things and new ways of being in this world. And I was very lucky to be surrounded with people who were very supportive around me. And they really nurtured that experience for me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know I'm originally from Mexico, and coming to the States, the United States at the age of 10, I kind of went through something similar, you know, and I know a lot of people go through that, especially when you move from one country, one city, one neighborhood to another, where you're looking for that acceptance and also, as you mentioned, belonging, right? I wanted to get your opinion on this. A lot of times, you know, just like belonging, acceptance is very important in human nature, right? And I think a lot of times when people are looking for the acceptance, it could be from your parents, from your family members, and yet if you don't find that, you find that within your community. And hence why I believe sometimes people fall into the wrong crowd. As you mentioned, you were surrounded by great people, yet sometimes people tend to fall into the wrong crowd because they're looking for that acceptance, that community. How do people step out of that, and again accept the fact that you got to surrender, not to give up, you got to surrender to accept that you're in a different environment, and that this could be the beginning of something great, right? How do people get over that?
Wow, thank you. That's a really great question. So from having worked with a lot of people who have come from similar situations and my own experience, I think a lot of it comes down to how your upbringing was from a very young age. So we form, most of our core beliefs are formed by the age of 3 or 4 years old. You know, we have already formed most of our core beliefs. And then as we grow older, some of these beliefs linger into our 7, 8 years of age. And everything that happens afterwards, every interaction, every relationship that we make, or how we handle things in life, is all determined by those patterns and programs that have been set in that young age. So for me personally, I was quite, I guess, quite secure in myself. I knew who I was, and I wasn't really threatened by the new changes in my life. So that helped me kind of settle in and be more open to the new experiences, rather than being disoriented by them and falling into the wrong crowd where you feel like you belong more. So how we find people that we belong with is all down to our programming. And when we move to a new place, we will find people that we feel we belong with, depending on how we were programmed or how we were brought up from a very young age. And this is something that can be revised. It's something that, you know, this is exactly what NLP does, as I'm sure you're aware yourself. It works directly with programs and patterns, you know, for a person, and that creates their experience and revises and upgrades them. And this is definitely something that can be revised. But I would say that as long as you know within yourself that what is it that you want from life, and that's a really good place to start.
Yeah. How do you, I guess, at which point in your life, or did you find NLP? Was that going through college? Is that what you said? I want to be a practitioner, or was it based on your own obstacles that you have to overcome?
It was definitely based on the challenges and obstacles that I had to work on in my life. I've had obstacles throughout the life, as anyone does, right?
Yeah.
Human experience. But I would say the biggest transformation that I experienced was when I gave birth to my second son. I had a long journey of fertility, hormonal treatments, IVF, miscarriages, multiple life-threatening emergency surgeries. And when I had my second son, it just every complication that you can think of, everything that you can think of can go wrong at birth did go wrong, unfortunately or fortunately. Depends how you look at it. And my health kind of went into, it was a domino effect of one health complication created a new one, which created a new one, and so on. And very long story short, I came back from dead. There was a lot of damage that happened to my organs, and almost lost some of my organs, and I needed multiple surgeries. I went into depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and it was a very dark time in my life. I wasn't able to hold my son in the first few weeks of his life because I wasn't physically able to. And that was really a very big turning point in my life. I remember one day I was in the middle of a hysterical crying episode, and something snapped inside me, and I stopped and I said to myself, I need to make a decision now. What do I want from life? And because I can't do this every day. And I decided, I clearly remember deciding that I said to myself that I want life to feel good again. And that was it for me. After that, I was a woman on a mission. I went on internet, I went on YouTube, I've read books, anything and everything that you can find on how you can change your experience, how you can change your reality, and how I can go back to feeling good about my life again. And I must have tried, I can't even remember how many things I tried, not myself. And it was a period of 6 months, and by the end of it, I actually had another really big major surgery that could have gone wrong, and I could have left with permanent damage. And I remember I worked on myself for months, and by the time I got to that surgery, I remember walking into the surgery and thinking, regardless of what the outcome is, I now know that I will be okay. That I have the resources and the power in me to make myself okay, regardless of what my external circumstances are. And just knowing that, just having that knowing was so empowering for me. It was like, I could do anything. And luckily the surgery went okay. And at the end of that, all of anxiety and the flashbacks and having worked through all of those things, I wasn't just back to how I was before. I was way better than how I ever was. At that time, that was the best version of me I had ever experienced. And it was just liberating. And what I realized was people would come up to me and ask me, who knew what I'd gone through, how did I do what I did? How did I not stay in that dark place of depression? How did I pull myself out of it so quickly? And when I'll tell them, there was no structure to what I did, because I did everything and anything. And I found that people was very overwhelmed by a lot of the information I was giving them. And then when I found this particular school of NLP that I studied with, this is not conventional NLP. This is NLP on steroids. It has decades and decades of experience of working with people from my mentors that I benefit from, and take it into sessions with me to the clients. And everything just fell into place. I had found something that made it easy for people to have transformations, because I realized that not everyone has the programming that I did to make that decision in such a dark place. A lot of people are not even able to make a decision in that dark place of changing their life and then working towards that. So I've never looked back. It's been my passion since I found it, and I just love every minute of doing this every day.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things that you mentioned that are pretty, I think, important and valuable to mention. The first one, you talk about, that's the decision, right? And I always tell people that we're definitely impacted by the decisions and the choice that we make today, because that'll determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. And when you set your mind and you said, I want to do this, and you definitely make that decision to make that, whether at that moment is good or bad, it doesn't really matter. It's just you're making that decision. It's going to help you get to the next level. And then you find out that it was not the right decision, then you can quickly pivot and do something different, right? Except you're in this path. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, that is the most difficult thing, is for people to make that decision, to make that next step. And so I think that's critical for the idea of having that change, making that change. The other thing that is very fascinating to me is I've talked to so many different people, and this is clearly a great testimonial that from pain, a purpose is born. You don't have to stay stuck in that pain. You find something that comes out of that. And I know for a fact myself, I've gone through so many different things. And I always look back and I ask myself, what is the lesson, or what is that one thing that I need to learn from here? It might be painful. It may not be what I wanted, yet there's something great that can come out of this. And for you, exactly, is this. Now you're helping impacting other people going through near death trauma experiences and anxiety and all these different things, and now being able to take that, overcome that challenge, and utilize that to help other people is definitely amazing. The last thing is the mind. And obviously when you look at NLP, and a lot of that is, you're really tapping into the root of the challenge, right? You're not on the surface, you're definitely going deep down. What are your maybe things or practices when you talk to your clients about the mind, right? Because I think there's an African proverb that says, when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm, right? And it comes down to all the things that are going into in our mind. There's so many thoughts on a day-to-day basis. A lot of them are negative. Some of them are repetitive from previous days. And so how do you step out of that? How do you tell a client maybe that has gone through a lot, that it really, part of it begins with what's going up in between our 2 ears?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you don't directly tell a client that, because the reason they've come to you is because if it was that easy to just understand it and allow it to change our lives, then we would. But unfortunately, we get buried under layers of old patterns and beliefs that it's really hard to see the resources that we have available to us. And it's a matter of just having a conversation and identifying, first of all, assuming and respecting where they've come from, everything that they've been through, holding a very respectful place for their experiences, and honoring everything they've been through, and always go with the assumption that everyone is a whole and a human being, and no one needs fixing. They just need to be guided a little bit in a direction. And I always use the example that it's actually, we were doing a refurb on our house last year, and we had this really old carpet, which had been there since we moved into this house. And we couldn't wait to get rid of that carpet. And after, I think, 6 years we had been living in this house, we ripped off the old carpet. And we were so surprised to discover that underneath, which we'd expected a really old staircase, it was a beautiful mahogany staircase. And it had been there all that time without us knowing it was there, just covered under that old, raggy carpet. And that's exactly how humans function. We don't even know all the resources and beautiful creativity we have hidden inside us, because we are so distracted and consumed by all these layers of old carpets, or all these layers of old habits and patterns and traumas that are completely covering that and not making those available to us. And when I work with clients, it's simply a matter of they're the captain of the ship. They steer which way direction they want to go, and I simply go along with them along the way. I show them and I peel one layer after another, and I make it available for them to see all the resources they have within us.
Yeah.
And that they weren't able to see before, and it's just making a new experience available for them so they can then include that in their life.
Right. One of the things that people used to ask me, and I don't know if you get this, and not to knock anybody out, I just want to be able to set the precedence of the difference between an NLP practitioner versus a psychologist, right? People might say, well, why go to someone like you, where I might be able to go to a psychologist, or vice versa, right? Can you kind of maybe outline some of the differences or benefits, of somebody using you versus somebody else?
Yeah, of course. So psychologists, psychiatrists, they are licensed practitioners, and they help diagnose a lot of they put labels on a lot of the experiences that people are having. Whereas my background or my teachings are entirely different. First of all, we're not licensed, and the reason for that is because we don't have a box of recipe cards that we pull out. If person is going through this, ask this. If person is going through that, do this. We go every individual has their own experience. There's no one like them in the world. You're your own individual. Your experience is unique to you. So that's how we treat every client. Every client is treated different from every other client. There's not one size that fits all. The questions that we ask one client, we will not be asking that with another client, even though they have the same experiences, because although on surface level experience is the same, how they created that experience, how their brain treats that experience is entirely different. That's the main difference. And that is one of the reasons why back in the day when they were researching NLP and they wanted to make it a licensed practice, they couldn't, because they wanted NLP practitioners to ask all the clients same questions. For example, who had PTSD or who had phobia. They're like, why are you not asking them the same questions? Because that's how research works. They need people to ask the same questions and get the answers from different clients. And well, you can't ask 10 people the same questions because they all have their own experiences. And also we have, over the years, my mentors have, which they've taught us, built these beautiful tools and which allow us to study not just the content of an experience, but the structure of an experience, how an experience has been structured in a person's brain. So assume we have all these different building blocks that form a building. So now what we do is we learn to decipher those different building blocks, and we learn to work with them, and then we can, when we can decode that, then we can manipulate that. And we also have different techniques and tools that are very unique to the school that I've learned with, that are not found anywhere else in the world, that allow us to go in directly and figure out what was the pattern or the program that's responsible for creating this experience in this person's life. So things can move really quickly, right, in NLP sessions.
Yeah, and I know other people do it. I don't know if you do this. I mean, it kind of going back to that is every person has a different experience. There are different challenges. They might seem the same challenge on the surface level, yet deep down they're different, because the root of that challenge came from multiple different places, right? And so, do you normally do kind of like a discovery call or something to be able to guide you and help you understand that client better before you start working with that client?
Oh, absolutely. So in fact, actually, if you go to my Instagram, which is Gull, as in the seagull, Gull, Gull, to greatness, Gull to greatness on my Instagram. And under my bio, you'll find a link where you can book a free discovery call with me. And I love speaking to people and then just checking out if we are a good fit to work with each other. People can ask me any whatever questions that they have, and I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know one thing that I learned, I forget who I got this from. And one thing that they were talking about is that life is pretty much it's kind of like a school system. You're always learning, right? And you're going to continue to learn all the way to the end of your days in this world. For you, how is that? Do you continue to get mentored? You continue to get educated, even though now you're educating, you're helping, you're essentially getting people unstuck, right? Do you have the same experience yourself going through that over and over? And do you feel like that's something that will be with you to the end?
Oh gosh, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. Um, you're never done.
Yeah.
Full stop, and there's always room for improvement. And one of the ways that I have had it, one of the things actually, a lot of when you say you're going to someone very experienced, a lot of times very experienced people tend to get stuck in the old ways, and they stop learning new things, and they get really comfortable with their practices. They carry on. I think one of the really important things is to keep challenging yourself, because if you're not growing. And I have a wonderful community of NLP practitioners. We all get together on regular basis, and we all learn. We all give each other feedbacks. We all learn from each other. We share our findings. We experiment on each other with new things all the time. And I, even with my school, I'm constantly in touch, and I keep going back, and there's always something new that I'm learning. I learn new courses. I take new courses on a regular basis about, there's always new stuff out there that you can learn. And this is one of my passions. I'm always reading books. And for me, the most important thing is to just keep learning.
Yeah.
Keep learning. You're never really done. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. One thing that I like about NLP is that it's beyond just, the programming. Well, it's definitely programming at the surface level without really getting into that. A lot of it has to do with how you speak to yourself and how you speak to others and the words you say, right? And so one of the things that you have here, and I want you to kind of elaborate more on this, is that the first step is to acknowledge so if you want to find yourself unstuck, the first step is to acknowledge the unwanted reality you're experiencing. So acknowledging is not the same as accepting, and then asking yourself this one very important question. Okay, this has happened, and now what would I like to do about it? This one question immediately takes you out of the victim's mode and onto the path of progress and growth. So talk a little bit about that in itself, except also about how we talk to ourselves. Like the things that we say can take us from one part of the spectrum to the other part of it where it's more successful and progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, how we talk, the self-talk that we have with ourselves, most of the time we don't realize a lot of things that we are saying to ourselves. And again, it's all to do with our programming. If you're having to remember to be positive all the time, it's exhausting and it's tiring and doesn't quite work out very well. But if you can have some support and guidance and do some work on yourself, which can update and revise your programming, where you don't actually have to remember to be positive. It becomes a natural way of being, to be positive and to think positive and to say positive things. And there's more than one reason. There's thousands of possibilities of why someone is so negative and have a negative self-talk. And it's just, when you go in and figure it out, why someone having a negative talk with themselves all the time, and then how you switch that into a positive one. It's down to every individual. And that was one of the things that I worked with a lot on myself. And when I'm talking about there about acknowledging, and it's not being the same thing as accepting, it's about when we acknowledge something in our life, we stop resisting it. And because when we resist something, what we resist persists. The more you resist something, the more it's going to persist in your life. So acknowledgement of what it is about your life that you don't like right now. What is it in your reality that you don't want? Acknowledging it and then saying, okay, this has happened to me. Now what do I want to do about it? That is the very, very important process for anyone to move forward. And it's not the same thing as accepting, because you're not saying, okay, I accept it and yeah, fine, it happened and now there's nothing I can do about it. That's accepting it. But acknowledging is entirely different. Acknowledging just means that you stop resisting it and you acknowledge that, yes, this problem exists in your life. And then the second part is to then ask yourself, what can I do about it now? What is it that I want instead? And once you start asking yourself that question, then you really come out of that, why did that happen to me, and poor me, and stop feeling sorry for yourself place. And you can start to move towards a different reality and different circumstances that you want to create in your life. And you don't even have to understand yourself fully to get into that place. You understand yourself along the way on the journey. You just need to know where you're standing right now so you can move forward from there.
Yeah, I definitely love that. And again, this is one of the topics that I really enjoy, just because I definitely utilize that also, not only for me to be able to get unstuck and be able to move forward. As you mentioned, kind of, it's a great tool to help other people. One of the things that people ask, is, well, the words do matter. And I say, yeah, they do matter. When we think about our communication, right, more or less, they might have changed a bit here, except 63% of our communication is our physiology. And then 30% of our communication is tonality. And then 7% of that are words. And so then people ask me, well, then if words are only 7%, they're not that important. And I said, on the contrary, they are, because they're 7% more so. Why you got to pay attention to how you speak to yourself and how you speak to other people, and definitely foster the idea that whatever we do say matters. And so I know for me, as I was going through that journey, and I would normally use words that didn't serve me, and maybe you have a better technique. For me, is like the minute that I would catch myself saying something like, this is a problem, I'm like, wait, this is not a problem, this is a challenge, right? Or those different mind triggers, right? Instead of saying but or and, I would immediately change that, so that I can start reprogramming myself on doing that. How do you definitely tell people to make sure that when they find themselves using something that might not be of serving, they can change that immediately?
Yeah, so actually one of the things that one of the really cool tool that I use for myself, and I often share with people, is that every time you have a bigger task at hand, don't just look at that big task, because a lot of times we get so overwhelmed when we look at this big challenge that we've set up for ourselves. For example, if you want a very simple example, if you want to go running every day, and you think about, oh, I gotta go running every day now, you can start getting overwhelmed, and you can start, and then you get into a negative spiral. Well, I never do that, I know I won't stick to it, I'm gonna put on weight, or I'll be unhealthy. This is where all this negative self-talk begins. And then what you can do instead, you can start counting all your small accomplishments and recognize them. So what I do is, so for example, with running, waking up, I got out of bed in the morning, success. I yell success to myself, sometimes out loud if there's no one around, or mostly in my head, I'll say success. And then I'll say, I put on my running shoes, success. I put on my running gear, success. So every little step that leads to the big action, you acknowledge in your brain as success. What that does is it makes your brain more familiar with this concept of gaining success, getting success, and it makes success feel safe for your brain. So a lot of times we have this negative self-talk because it stems from fear. It's fear-based programming that the creature, our old part of our mammal brain has. Its job is to keep us safe from things that could be threatening to us. So every time we're overwhelmed, it's threatening to our system. And so then that's where we get into, say, negative spiral, and we talk ourselves out of things. But when you do all these little things through the day, and every little thing you acknowledge it as success for your brain, you're telling it it's safe to do this. It's okay to do this. And the second important thing is that you're giving your brain evidence of accumulating success. The more evidence you present to your brain that you're succeeding in life, the more you will succeed in life. And also it serves as great motivation. So that's a really cool trick and tip that I actually use on myself regularly. And I share that with a lot of people.
Good. No, I love that. I love that. One other thing that came to mind right now, you were talking about, getting out of this victim mode by the things that we say. And it reminds me of the drama cycle, right? On the drama cycle, you have these 3 different elements, which probably you can say 95% of the people are living in the drama cycle, and then the other 5 are outside of the drama cycle. Maybe if you can share a little bit of that in the aspect of that. And when I'm talking about the drama cycle, the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer, in terms of being able to start stepping out of that, because I think that that's something that we need right now as a society, as people. We got to be able to step outside of that drama cycle and not be in it. What would be perhaps one way for us to be able to start stepping outside of that, or maybe if there were some customers that are living that, that you might be able to share?
Yeah, thank you. So what I understand from your question is what we have this 2 main modes of living in. We either feel we're innocent or we feel that we're guilty, the perpetrator, right? So what happens is a lot of times if you're addicted to innocence, which is a very comforting place to be for a person, and then you create circumstances in your life where you carry on being the innocent one. Someone was mean to you, they're the guilty ones, you're innocent. And then we end up creating a lot of situations in our lives, in our relationships, with money, with health, love, where you're always the innocent one and the other party is the guilty one. And so it's a trance. We kind of start living in a trance of being addicted to this innocence. And what it is, it's kind of it's sometimes when you're in a trance, it's really hard to recognize that you are doing that. So for example, I had a client who came to me, and he had a boss who was always bullying him. And we went back to his programming of where in his life, in his young age, he had an experience of being bullied. And then he had kind of formed this addiction to feeling innocent, and he wanted to just maintain his innocence through the life, where that became a safe place for him to be, because if he stood up for himself, then he was one of the guilty parties, and you don't want to belong to the guilty party. You want to keep your belonging with innocent people. So then we worked and revised his patterns where it was okay for him to stand up for himself without feeling guilty about doing so. And there's a third way of living. You don't have to be either innocent or guilty. You could find a middle ground where you don't have to belong to either of those extremes, and you can be in the middle. And it's all about coming out of that trance and recognizing that, are you in a trance where you feel like you're constantly feeling like the victim and the innocent one, where everything else and everyone else around you is the guilty one, and then working with someone who can help you come out of that trance and help you with setting up your programming and patterning in a way where you can start to function from that place of almost neutrality.
Yeah, I definitely love that. In terms of your clients, do you work with people all over the world, or how do you who are your clients?
Oh gosh, yeah. So thank you. I have clients from everywhere around the world, and thanks to modern technology.
Yeah.
And I also work with people in person. I also do offer group courses as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
Good. Where can people find you?
Oh, I'm everywhere. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, my website. And if you just type in my surname Gull, Gull, as in the seagull, Gull
Yeah.
to greatness, TO to greatness. Yeah, you can find me on any of these platforms.
And that's where people can obviously connect. And if they want to work with you, definitely.
Absolutely. They can send me an email. They can send me a message on Instagram, on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever they prefer.
Yeah, definitely. And one of my last questions for you is for the people that are listening to us, watching us, you've already given us a lot of great tips, by the way. If anyone that is listening and or watching us and they're going through some sort of challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing or a few things they can start doing to start overcoming that challenge?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I would say, and it sounds very cliche to say that, but people underestimate the importance of how everything is temporary, nothing is permanent, and things move in one direction or another, whether we like change or not, it's happening constantly. So it's up to us to put our focus, energy, and intention towards which direction we want the change to happen. And the most important things I would say to anyone is that you don't have to feel like you're alone in this, and you don't have to arm wrestle with yourself in a internal conflict every time you want to create a change in your life. If you have the right beliefs and patterns to support, any change is possible. So I would say reach out to anyone that you think that could be helpful to you.
Right. You mentioned that not everything is forever, right? It's either temporary or some kind, and that's actually very true. And at the same time, I know for a fact that some people that I talked to in the past are like, well, but I've gone through some very challenging times, whether it was a breakup, whether it was related to a job loss, whatever that might have been, and it was so painful that people might end up holding to that feeling, right? It's an emotion, and cannot get out of that. How do you, I mean, because again, you might lose that person that loved you, and they might have cheated you or done all these different things. You might have lost that job of 30 years. You might be finding yourself homeless, whatever that might be. Yet it's temporary, yet the pain, that emotion is there. How do you get out of that? Start working on that little by little on your own to be able to get out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Everything that we experience, it's the meaning that we attach to it. So how we perceive something is how we will experience it. And how you perceive something, that perception is entirely in your control, and it's changeable, it's modifiable. We are programmed from a young age to perceive certain things in a certain way because of how we experienced it as a child, or how we saw our parents or our caretakers experiencing them as adults. So that's how we learned, oh, if this happens, then you perceive it in this way. So if you want to change how an experience feels to you, whether it's health, it's a breakup or loss of job, you can, if you switch your perception, then you entirely switch your experience. You can see the job loss as an opportunity to do something new and exciting with your life. You can see loss of a love as an opportunity for growth and for creating space for something new in your life. And all those things rely and depend on how you're perceiving your experiences. And all of that depends on creating more options for yourself in life. And so what I mean by that is if something happens to you, you have an option to perceive it in this way or that way. So now mostly a lot of people function on autopilot, where they are programmed to perceive something just in one way. If you have a conflict, you perceive it in a stressful way. You'll get angry and stressed out because that's the only option that's available to you. But the freedom is in creating more options for yourself in life. So if you have behavior flexibility, if you have more options in your life, then if whatever experience life throws at you, you can choose, okay, I choose to perceive it this way, and I choose to experience it this way. And so then it's all about creating those more choices for yourself in life.
Right.
And it's all about, and all of this, it begins with how you relate to yourself. So that's what we really focus on in our work. We work with people and how they relate to themselves. And then once they acknowledge and recognize how they're relating to themselves, then they can go and figure out how they want to relate with success, with love, money, health, food, or whatever else it is.
Got it. Definitely. My last question for you is, do you have any habits or rituals that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you in a positive state of mind?
Oh, wow. Yes. So I do, I try to, I would say, meditate every day. The duration changes because I'm a busy mom and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so what I tell myself is that I'm not going to be rigid in my routine, and that creates a lot of space for me then to still have this beautiful experience I want to have every day, but not in a rigid routine, so I don't have the morning ritual or the night ritual because I'm a mom and I'm a businesswoman, so I have to be flexible. But whenever I find time in the day, I dedicate time for meditation, which I absolutely love. So I do, whether if it's 10 minutes, I just sit down quietly and I meditate. And another one of my rituals that I do is I read every day, and it doesn't matter how much. Again, I've created flexibility for myself. Even if it's a page, I have to read, whether if it's just a page or half a page. Or 10 pages, depends on how the day is going. And then I also, that thing that I told you about, the trick with success, I absolutely love that. And I use that on myself on a regular basis. And then it's just one thing that, again, is very cliche, but it's gone through me very challenging times. And again, it's very underestimated, which is the power of just gratitude. And you don't have to journal it if you don't want to journal it, if you're not in a place to feel gratitude towards life yet, or, we don't have the time. Just start with one thing, anything. I have clean air to breathe. I can breathe. Even just something as simple as that. So I practice gratitude every day. I take a few moments out throughout my day, and I just immerse myself in a deep state of gratitude for things that I have and things that are yet to come.
I love it. I love it. Well, Amna, thank you again. I definitely enjoyed this conversation with you. It was such a great pleasure having you. Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to add to the audience?
I know, just that, never be afraid to reach out to anyone. And if you are listening to this, and if you're here for a reason. I would say your soul is trying to tell you something. So I would say, don't be afraid to experiment and play around with different things and different tools in your life. That's what life is all about. And thank you so much for having me. It's been a treat chatting with you. It's been really lovely. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you go ahead and connect with Amna. Find her on social media. Book a consultation with her. Definitely is something that can definitely help you. And do me a favor, share this, because somebody definitely needs to hear this message. And I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.